Hello everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of the Mooncast. I'm your host Samantha, and today we are going to be talking about my cure for loneliness. But before we begin, I have a few things I want to get out of the way. One is that you may have noticed I said Season 2. And I've decided that each season of my podcast will coincide with the actual season that we're in, resulting in about 12 episodes per season. Now, I do realize that we're a little bit more into spring, but I'm still figuring all this out and deciding how I want it to work. So from here on out, every season will be a new season, if that makes sense. The second thing I wanted to touch on is that I wanted to thank each and every one of my listeners. Without you, there would be no podcast. I am eternally grateful for your presence. The third thing that I wanted to announce is that on the summer solstice, I will be launching my membership program on buymeacoffee.com. On the podcast, I usually talk about philosophies and different topics on witchcraft and spirituality. In the membership, I will be first and foremost in front of the camera more, and I will be discussing the ins and outs of magic more in depth, and also showing you some spells and how to do things like how to create a sacred space, working with the elements, and so on. I haven't set a price for that yet, but I want this to be accessible for everyone, so I can tell you that it will be very affordable and just one more way for me to help educate the community as well as support myself and my family by doing what I do. So if you're interested in that, make sure that you're following me on either Facebook or Instagram. Both are under the name @TheSageWitch. And on those platforms, I will be posting more updates as they come. And I'm just very excited for this. I'm very excited for you to join me. So with all that being said, let's move into our topic for the week. I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you something that might just make you think I'm a little bit crazy. I talk to trees. I'm also not going to pretend I was the first person who has come up with this idea, as well as I'm well aware the term tree hugger is much older than I am. But today I want to tell you how I use this to cope with loneliness. And truly, in the last few years, some of us have felt more lonely than we ever have or care to again. But you see, we are never alone because we are forever surrounded by nature. I have 3 cousins on one side of my family, I being the second oldest, and I have 12 cousins on the other, I being the 13th and the youngest. My closest relative lives about 45 minutes to an hour from me, and needless to say, we don't see as much of each other as we would like. But I will tell you, it is a very merry occasion when we do. I do not have any brothers or sisters, and both of my parents have moved on from this life. My grandmothers and grandfathers are all passed on, as are the aunts and uncles I was once close to. I was quite close with my grandmothers, and he even had the honor of a great-grandmother who passed away when I was 16. It's safe to say I've lost a lot of family members, and this hasn't been an easy thing to get used to. I do have a small handful of friends, as well as a few members of my lover's family I cherish and see regularly. But for the most part, there are none who have known me all my life. And at times, this can make me feel lonely. There is no one to recall fond memories with, and no one I have the comfort and familiarity you get from knowing one another all your lives. Because I had no siblings, I became adept at entertaining myself, which is something that has served me well into adulthood. I was a creative child, often losing myself in art and the natural world. I had a handful of those I would call friends, but I was still alone a lot. But one of my best friends was nature. I am very fortunate that I grew up and still live in a place with immaculate beauty. We have the Cascade Mountain Range to the east and the Pacific Ocean to the west. When I was still in grade school, I would wander out into the hayfield across from my house and look to the mountain. When the world felt too big, I would sit and listen to its spirit. Having that great massive form in the distance gave me something to focus on, much like a candle when meditating, and helped me to clear my mind and to search for the answers I was looking for. I always felt better after my mountain chats. This became such a thing in my childhood that when my mother asked me where I was going, I would reply, "I'm going to go talk to the mountain," and she would simply tell me to be home before dark. I also spoke to the stars and to the trees on a regular basis. Cliché as it might sound, I even have one specific star that I talk to this day. When I was old enough to drive and work, I made sure to say hello to certain trees on my way to work. There are some trees that know me from when I was a small child, and I make sure to visit them as often as I can. There is a tree by the lake I used to swim in the summer that I have coffee with, and even bring my own children to visit when the days are too hot. And there is one tree in a local park, a great cedar, that was cut down years ago, that I still mourn to this day. I'm also incredibly fortunate to have a diverse wildlife population right in my very yard. There are eagles, hawks, owls, ravens, squirrels, minks, pheasants, rabbits, and the occasional coyote. Not to mention flocks upon flocks of starlings and juncos that visit my yard. And because I have lived here so long, I can tell the season changing simply by who is visiting me. The eagles and the coyote, for example, come mostly in the spring, and the deer are more prevalent in the fall and winter. There are also trees in my yard, an old lady pear tree, an introverted pine, and a circle of cedars and firs that catch news on the wind and gossip between one another. There are apple trees, who when in bloom in the spring seem to be giggling like children, and an old beech tree. He is the timekeeper and lets us know when each season is beginning and ending. These two are my friends. No matter where I go, I am surrounded by nature. As I am something of an animist, I feel each tree has its own energy, maybe even spirit. Even the trees planted in their tiny plots on the city streets. Even the trees planted in their tiny plots on the city streets say hello to me when I walk by. Each one has its own personality. Perhaps some are dome-shaped, while others are reaching straight up to the sky. Some are the first to have their leaves turn in the fall, while others are missing branches completely. Just like humans, they're all unique, with their own story to tell. When I am lonely, I will come to these places and stay a while. I do not try to replace my human relationships with the trees, stars, mountains, animals, and seas around me. But with these, I have a different kind of relationship, one that brings me peace and comfort. Even if you don't live in a place that is abundant with trees and wildlife, you might be surprised who you will find when you simply stop and take a moment to look and listen for them. What trees do you see every day? What birds? Believe me, they see you too. And these can be your friends if you want them to be. So when you think about it, you are always surrounded by friends and family, as we are all a part of nature and share that common connection. And while this may not be an actual cure for loneliness, it definitely helps me to feel not so lonely. And hopefully, now you won't feel so lonely too. Today I'm going to leave you with a short paragraph from Ralph Waldo Emerson's Nature Essay. Philosophically considered, the universe is composed of nature and the soul. Strictly speaking, therefore, all that is separate from us, all which philosophy distinguishes as the not me, that is, both nature and art, all other men and my own body must be ranked under this name, nature.